Welcome in, guys. Welcome to our Wednesday webinar. Dan, happy to have you here. Good topic today, targeting good sellers, good land, everything around that.
Absolutely, guys. Welcome in back to our Wednesday webinar. We're here every Wednesday, 5:30 on YouTube Live. Excited to get back into it. See a bunch of people in the chat putting their introducing themselves, everything like that. So a lot of familiar people hopping in, which we always love. We're here every week, same time. Thanks for joining us again, guys. Happy Wednesday.
If you guys don't mind, I was going to put a question in the chat, but I'm kind of curious, Dan, what everyone's experience level. Let's just say you've done deals. So you've done deals, you haven't sent any marketing, or you've sent marketing kind of waiting on deals. Like what category are you guys in terms of your experience level in land? Curious.
Absolutely. Welcome in, Tony. Welcome, Mariah. Max, welcome in. Adam's always in here. Devin, welcome in. Gregory Stewart, good evening. Yeah, like Ron said, guys, let us know your experience level in here. You can rank it on beginner, intermediate, expert, or 0 to 5, something like that. But
what do you guys want? I said, yeah, whatever they want. I'm curious to hear that.
So New Maria says, obviously I know the Adam in here has been doing it for a little bit now. Thomas West, Max has been in here a long time, but curious to see the majority of people. 0 land, 2 house deals. So some real estate by David. Gregory Stewart, no deals, just getting started. Nice. Mariah, 0.
Trying to do some deals, Greg. Love it.
Getting mail campaign out in the next 7 days. Awesome. Devin, love to see that. Haven't done any deals. Quite a mix. Intermediate, few deals, sent 12K mail. Need more deals with this mail. County research, but not taking the step. Jake, you're close. Just take that next step. You're right there. 0, 0. Yeah, a lot of newer people and then blended with people who are doing some things, but tons of newer from the chat. Logan, 70% through the course. Very cool.
When did you join, Logan?
Adam's
grinding there.
10 deals in 24 months, says Tony Bradshaw. Done a few, funded a few, Bruce. Nice. Quite the variety.
So as you guys trickle in, a lot of new people, or not new necessarily, just new to this YouTube live, because people trickle in throughout the first 5 minutes. Put in the chat what's your guys' experience level. Have you done deals? Are you trying to get your first deal? Or are you just learning, brand new? 0 to 5, however you want to rank it. You guys can see above the people in the chat how are answering it. So definitely 25 deals. Awesome. But let us know. Deal just fell out of contract.
You had 25. Oh, JDP, 25 deals. That's great. It's definitely on the higher end in here, it looks like.
Devin Landon said he had a great call with you yesterday.
Dibs on Georgia. We had dibs on Georgia 5 years ago.
It was a good time.
Before anyone did anything in Georgia. Yeah, Devin's in with Landon. Very cool. About 2 weeks ago, Logan joined about 2 weeks ago, and he's 70% through the course. Awesome. All right, we got plenty of people in here, guys. The question was what your guys' experience level was. Let us know in the chat if beginner, intermediate, expert, how many deals you've done, etc. So we can kind of cater this call to that. This is going to be for anyone really, in the space or looking to get in the space. We're going to cater this to both sides as much as we can, and excited to be here, guys, on our Wednesday webinar.
Absolutely. I'm going to put one more question in the chat for you guys. And that question is simply, actually, you guys can see it on there as well. Question of the day is, what makes a seller qualified? It's really as simple as that. And we'll discuss it here in a minute. What do you think if you have 20 phone calls, 20 sellers call in, like what other than them just wanting to sell, like what's their situation? What are their characteristics? All that stuff. What makes a seller qualified in your mind? I don't think there's really any right or wrong answer, to be honest with you, Dan.
No, there's not. And, I always say in this business, the people that make the most money are the ones who can get those people that are motivated to sell, but not 100% on board. And you can swing them the other way. So they're somewhere in the middle. There's going to be a lot of you guys, if you guys are sending mail, a lot of people are going to want to sell no matter what. as you get going, and they're very motivated, and anyone can sell and acquire their land. It's the people in the middle that take the most skill, I think, Ron, for the sales side. The slightly motivated, not 100% sold, and then you get them over the top and close the deal.
It's sales in general. It's so clear. Like if you have a product, a good, decent product that you're offering, for any sales, you're going to naturally get sales. But the good salespeople that can take it over the top are difference makers. I think we just talked about that on a podcast. I don't know if it's coming out tomorrow or next Monday, but we just talked about that on a podcast in terms of like the difference of a C salesperson versus an A salesperson in this business.
Yeah, and we talked about, I think that's the one tomorrow, and we talked about going from a D salesperson with the proper traits to, if the person possesses the proper traits rather than the skill, to becoming a B+ salesperson, even if you're not a natural one. So it's more about the traits in that podcast we discussed than the actual skills you have.
That's for land investors. Yeah, I think what the podcast is tomorrow morning, 6 a.m., and it'll be on YouTube in the afternoon, is literally the traits we see from successful land investors. So obviously we go beyond just sales, but talking just about sales isn't a bad idea. But we have a ton of people in here, guys. If you guys haven't already, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button on here. What makes a seller qualified? Dan, what's the one, if you had a 1-word answer for this, what would you say?
Josh said not threatening to harm me physically. which the hate calls. So you're asking me what I think makes a seller qualified?
Word,
motivation.
Yeah, I agree. That's my word. Motivation. To not threatening to harm me.
They either want to get rid of it or they don't, or they need the money or they don't. Like they come in and they want to get rid of it or they don't. It's motivation.
Ladessa, is this course or is there another course that I have to pay for? You don't have to pay for anything. We do have a paid course. We have a ton of free education as well on our YouTube channel that you're on right now. So if you hit our little icon, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of videos that you can learn from. That's good. All right, let's get to it though, Dan. I agree. Motivation's a huge one. So how to target the best land and most qualified sellers. What we want to do in this is walk you through some different steps we take. Like sometimes, Dan, we're going very bulk approach. We're going shotgun approach. We're like, let's just attack all the land in X County, Georgia. But you can't go to Georgia because Devin has Georgia. But you're going to X County in Georgia and you want to target all the land in this county above 2 acres. We do that all the time. But there's also times when we want to be more specific. We're going for big deals or we're going for more qualified people. We're just testing different strategies. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is going to a certain area. I want to be efficient with my marketing. I want to be efficient with my mail, text, whatever it is. I don't want to waste it on landlocked properties. I don't want to waste it on, there's always going to be bad sellers in there, but I don't want to waste my marketing too much. That's what we're going to talk about today.
Absolutely. Excited to get into it.
I think it also helps with market. This is not, Dan, can you talk a little bit about like, I don't think this should be a one size fits all. Some people are like, okay, this sounds great. I'm going to save money on marketing. But the things we're going to talk about, like we make deals happen out of bad land, and we make deals happen out of sellers that might not be qualified on paper.
Yeah. And that's why you get into like the filters of data sources, and you just have to be, some people try to filter every single thing out. Like a lot of people don't want neighboring property. So if someone owns land next to them and they only want owners out of county or out of state and tax delinquent and all of this, and that stuff works. Yes, of course it works. But you'll lose so many deals like that. And especially if you're texting or cold calling, mail is expensive, so you can get more granular with that. But in terms of just reaching out, like we buy so much property with neighboring where they live next door. I would never, ever filter that out. But I talk to a lot of land investors and they're filtering out 80% of their data based on this, and this criteria. But the fact is, like, if you have a good value and a good business model like we have, you're going to get deals outside of those categories.
I almost think like motivation, like I don't want to say it's a qualification, like there has to be some kind of motivation there. Like we're not paying 100% of market value. And that's what we're talking about when we say qualified. I almost switched that to motivated, but I think it's almost a separate thing. So the first couple of things, they don't use the land. Like if you talk to a seller and literally one of the first things you can ask them, like, when's the last time you've been to land? Oh, I've never been there. We hear that. How many times do we hear that? 50% of the time, maybe, Dan.
Yeah.
We talk to sellers and they say, I've never been to the land. One thing that kind of fits under that bucket is they do not live close. Again, you can filter like this, and I will show you guys how to filter like this, that they don't live close to their land. But that being said, it's not 100% like a thing. It's not like we never buy land from someone who lives right next to it. We buy land all the time of someone who's selling like is it called an out parcel? I don't know what it's called, but they have 2 5-acre parcels right next to each other. They live on one of them. The other 5 acres they sell to us. It happens all the time.
Yeah, that's common. That's not a one-off. That happens all the time.
All the time. No, that is not like a situation. Like there are one-offs. Like we buy land from churches sometimes. We buy, and I could probably put that on here as well, the type of sellers. But again, we buy land from LLCs, trust, everything under the moon.
Yeah, that's another thing. A lot of people want to exclude LLCs and corporations, and historically, the conversion's not as high, but we do buy a lot from LLCs of people who just put their company under an LLC or a corporation, and they sell it. That's very common as well.
Max said something good here. Many people know what they have, but they just need to cash out. At that point, game changes and it's a win-win. You can open up really more, and usually it's good for both parties. And all Max is saying is essentially like they know land is not an easy thing to liquidate. I say it all the time. Like it is not like we're buying it for 50% of market value and they can sell it for 100% of market value tomorrow. Like it might take them 12 months to get what they want for it or to get market value for it. And time is like money in this thing. And us being quick with our offers, everything like that makes more sellers qualified. And that's what the next one is, financial situation. Some people are in a pinch right now. Like the economy, things are expensive as crap right now as far as like things, and people are probably in a pinch for money, everything like that. There's life circumstances, which is the next thing. But financial situation is huge. When you get a letter, we're closing on someone in a couple of weeks where we're giving them $450,000 cash. Is it worth more than that? Absolutely. But that being said, like there's a life situation that came up, and like it's just something that makes sense for her and her family.
Yeah, exactly. Financial situations, the number one motivator primarily. Also hassle. There's other things that go into it. Life circumstances, they need the money for something, but it always comes down to money typically. Like they want the money. There's been situations where we sell to well-off people run and they just are sick of dealing with it and the taxes and all that. But typically they want to get rid of it and they want to liquidate their asset as quick as possible, because the fact is they're not in their house. This isn't their house. They don't live on it. They don't need the shelter. They're not going to sell their house. They're going to sell their asset under. They're going to sell their stocks, their other assets, their cars, their land, things like that. And this falls under that. So it's a secondary asset to them and it's not a necessity. And that's why it comes quicker and we can buy from so many landowners.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing that makes this business, like people talk about it being saturated, and I think we've talked about it in a recent episode. Maybe that's an episode next week or something. I don't remember. These two at the bottom are why this business model, like why it's hard for it to be saturated. Because someone who didn't want to sell their land 2 weeks ago might want to sell their land today. That's just the reality of it. Things come up. You make a better offer to them. You portray your offer to them better. These two things are what make this business so scalable and why you can constantly do deals in the same area and target the same sellers. And sometimes they're not going to want to sell. Then eventually they are. But yeah, is there anything we're missing here, Dan?
No, let us know in the comments if we're missing something big. I'm curious to see what the crowd thinks, but no, I think you hit it spot on.
Sellers need liquidity or they want convenience. We provide both. That's a really good point, Gabe. And like seeing it from what we offer, we say it time and time again, Dan, we have sent out numerous, what are they called? Surveys to the people we have bought land from. And we do not have there is not a single bad response on those surveys because we're being fast. We're being transparent with the transaction. We're getting them what we told them we're going to get.
Value. Yeah. It's a lot of value that we're providing, fast and the money. Along with that, there's other ways that we can, like if someone's motivated, we can usually work with them in one way or another. If it's a higher purchase price, maybe we have to double close. If it's a higher purchase price, maybe we need to add some value in it, subdivide, things like that. When you start getting into improvements and subdivisions, which we've had prior episodes on, then you start, you can push 80%, 90%, 100% of market value sometimes if you do it right.
Completely different ballgame.
There's so many different ways. This is land investing, right? This isn't necessarily just land flipping and buying a property at 40% and reselling at 100. There are so many different ways we make money. Subdivisions is probably the number one way we make money. We still buy a ton at 40%, 50% and flip it, of course. but we also double close if they want 60, 70% and they're motivated and they just won't come down. So there's kind of a ladder of options that we go through when we're talking to sellers.
Exactly. So let's get to land. So we talked a little bit about sellers. Again, it's hard to know. And like people tried with data sources and try to really, I'll show you guys a couple of things here in a few minutes with data sources, but it's not that easy. Like financial situation, you can do people who are tax delinquent, everything like that. But it's really hard to pinpoint it. And that really is, in my opinion, more of a bulk approach. But with the land is the key thing, in my opinion. If you cannot target bad or not like the bottom 20% of land, you say there's 80%, there's 20% that's great land, there's 20% that's really bad land, there's that middle great 60% where we do most of our deals. If you can get rid of that bottom 20%, it makes it way easier. You can save money on marketing data, everything like that. So number one, the land lays well, the slope, the usability, it's got a buildable spot. Is there anything else? Oh, I forgot even to put wet on here, Dan.
Wet's a big one as well. Yeah,
I wasn't even talking about. I was talking about that was going to be down here. Wetlands / floodplain, huge wetlands / floodplain.
Mm-hmm.
But land lays well is essentially the slope and the usability. Like, is it usable? Like, is it, as far as usability, could be hunting. Like, it could be have a buildable spot and then have really good hunting land behind it. A lot of things that go into that. Number two, and probably the biggest one, Dan, is road frontage. Like, does it have access?
Yeah.
Can someone use it?
I mean, you get in these areas, what do you think? That's 20, 30% of land in a lot of areas.
In some areas, it is. Like, there are some areas where when they subdivided land, like there was restrictions, like you need to give road access. Other areas, like they don't care. And what happened back in the day is these people, these families would split up the land, and they would split it up, and then they would just have a napkin agreements. Like, you can access this land, you can build on this. And now it's 100 years later,
it's not legal,
and there's no legal access to get
even
to
if there is legal,
and
there's no physical. Nothing. It's physical and legal access combined. And yeah, if you could find a way to do that, and I only it's 20, like in Alabama and some of these different states, it's literally 20 to 30% of your mailers will have questionable access. So that's the biggest thing right there. You can quickly eliminate those bad properties just from that.
We tried to sell one Alabama property with really, like, it was maybe a mile off a road. I think it had legal access, but I'm not 100% sure. It was the most miserable piece of land I've ever sold. Could not get people there. Like, you had to give them GPS coordinates, and they would just have to, like, you'd have to.
And then there's trees, and they go up to it. They're like, how do I get back to the land? There's a bunch of trees here.
It's brutal. Yeah, it was not fun. And I believe that had legal access, but I don't know if we ever confirmed that 100%. So road frontage is legal access / road frontage is an absolute huge one. The next one I hate city limit properties. I really, really do. There's some that we're struggling to sell right now. City limits often, when you're talking about 10 acres in the city, yes, landlocked. When you're talking about 10 acres in the city, there's not much to do with it other than develop, Dan. You can't, our end buyers are typically the end buyers. So they can't hunt on it usually in the city. Like, rec land isn't really city land.
Well, that's just my opinion. Buying land to get out of the cities. And that's like, this is vacant land we're flipping, like rural vacant land. We're not talking, infill, subdivision, that type of lots. Really, we're talking rural vacant land in this. And yeah, being in a city restricts what they can do. The more restrictions you have, the smaller buyer pool you're going to have. Anytime you add any sort of restriction on the land, your buyer pool is going to drop to some capacity, even if it's minor restrictions like no mobile home. You need a double wide mobile home, this type of foundation. You need all these different restrictions add up, and then your buyer pool, as soon as there's restriction, just drops. And city limits has a lot of restrictions typically, and that's why it is what it is.
100%. And then finally, wetlands or floodplain, and those are different. A lot of people like the difference in wetlands and floodplain. Wetlands is more times than not standing water. Floodplain is the chance of flooding, essentially. And land can be amazing with 20%, with 80% floodplain. Like, it really can. Like, it can be amazing land with 80% floodplain, no wetlands. Not 100% of the time it's going to be like that. But wetlands, a lot of times, and we're trying to sell one up in Michigan, I think right now, wetland that is maybe 80% wetlands. It's a little more difficult because that 80% is swampland, where the 80% floodplain is just a chance of flooding. and you can build your house on that other 20%.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Anything to add to that, Dan?
No, I think we're good to go. I mean, you hit
Let me
on
go
the
through
spot.
some questions real fast. Boomers would rather go to the grave before selling their land for what they think it's worth. When I was a broker, a lady foreclosed rather than selling to a buyer I had set up. It's worth more.
That's funny.
No matter what you're selling, you should be selling medicine. You should be selling pain or gain, and your value proposition needs to illustrate. I love that. All right, cool. Let me get to, we're going to go on the land portal, guys. I'm going to show you guys some ways. I believe, Dan, is it in the description?
Yes, there's 14-day free trial in the description below on the land portal. We're going to dig in it and show you how to get some qualified leads here.
Is that a little easier for you guys to see? But then they're blocking. Hold on. You guys
yeah, just do this. This should be good.
All right, just let us know if you guys can see okay. We've made quite a few updates here in the last week. Dan can expand on those a little bit. So let's just go in. I always use Macon County, Georgia is just what I do. But let's go in and let's go to filtered search. Actually, use my mouse here. So what you can do here. So again, I'm gonna kind of go back and forth to this. Let's start with just the quality of land. And so let's do this overall quality of land. What we're gonna do vacant lots, and let's just go to. Let's go Macon County, Georgia. Didn't do my area. Macon County, Georgia. And let's go 2 to 100. So we're like I talked about the very beginning in this. Like there's some times when we just do a shotgun approach. That's what this is right now. I'm doing all the vacant lots, Macon County, Georgia. 2 to 100. That seems really low, Dan. 974. What's 974? And then I hit show on map. You can see everything that's going on. So this is a very, like I said, this is a more of a shotgun approach doing it like this. Like we're getting all the land here. We can export directly from here. That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about how can we get the great land? How can we reach out to the best sellers here? So let's go here. Let's go filtered search. So now you have this button. So we're at 974 right now. Remember that. So we go here and we go to landlocked. You can do landlocked is essentially it has road access. So now you can filter off all of the landlocked properties by saying no. So it's not landlocked. It has road frontage. I'm going to hit that button and hit apply. I'm guessing. Okay. So that's 20% right there, Dan. That's kind of what I was saying.
That's what we said, 20, 30%. I mean, that's Georgia. Georgia has good, like land in Georgia is good too. So in different areas, it's going to be even worse than that.
I didn't even know wetlands was on here, Dan. So that's awesome.
We have an admin account. I'm guessing it's not on there for the public right now. This is admin, but yeah, wetlands is already developed. I just don't think it's published yet.
Let's even go. I mean, do we want to? Let's not do road amount of road frontage. So we have FEMA coverage, which is floodplain, and we have wetlands coverage. Again, we talked about this being. We talked about these two being different. I explained that. Let's go 0 to 80. Does this work, Dan, right now, wetlands?
I've never tested it. We'll find out right now.
All right, let's see. 0 to 80%. So that is saying it can be up to 80% in wetlands. I actually want to go lower than that. I don't like that number.
50? Yeah, I like 50. 80's high. And this wetlands you guys won't see, like we said on your guys' account, it's just it's in our staging site right now, and it's in the admin site just for placement, I think. So it's not on your account, but if you were doing this without that, we'd probably use the FEMA instead. And you can use both as well.
Yeah, I'm going to use both. I just want to see. I want to see if this is working.
Let this run for 20 seconds and see. And then if it doesn't work, just go through it and use FEMA, because that's the first time I've seen. I didn't even know it was up there either right now.
Yeah, it's going through quality assurance right now, I guess. I mean, Dan didn't even know. So we'll give this another 10, 15 seconds. I'm not sure. Like Dan said, we're not sure if this is going to work, just because
if you guys were sending mail there and you guys took your list down from almost 1,000 to 772, just from filtering out landlocked properties, we got rid of 250 or so, and times 0.65, that's saving $162 of mail right there. So let alone, like, all these other filters are great, and especially wetlands and FEMA's great too. But like, just filtering, those don't have access, the properties that we filtered out. And that's $162, not only of money, but the time. Those people are going to call you back. They're going to get you, talking to them. You're going to spend time on the phone. It's time and money and just efficiency in general.
All right, I'm going to do I'm going to get back to this 772 number real fast. Looks like wetlands has still been worked on. So what would you do for floodplain, Dan? I know we talked about having are you fine up to 80%? It might be weird on those smaller parcels though.
Yeah, we gotta change landlocked, I think, to road frontage, yes or no. So instead of flipping the mind, you know what I mean? Road frontage, yes, no,
I like
and
that.
then it would be a yes instead of no. But for FEMA, I'd probably do,
Zero
FEMA
to
I don't care as
75
much
or
about.
something.
75, yeah, that's
Let's
fine.
do 0 to 75. So again, we talked about FEMA, guys, where FEMA and wetlands, it being here means this will be active in the next week or so, I'd imagine, if it's already on testing. So FEMA, that just dropped it down. That barely dropped it down. Georgia's not an overly wet area. So if I hit list view and I hit show on map, you can see how much this dropped down. We're down 20% right now. Is there anything else you would do here, Dan?
If there's wetlands, I'd do that. You could target the amount of road frontage if you wanted really good properties, but that's not completely necessary. It depends the strategy. So there's a tool on the filtered search. Did you
Even if you
talk
wanted
about
to
that?
go like 100 plus.
Yeah, so there's a road frontage, maybe, yeah, 100 minimum. Just don't put anything in there. Hit apply on that. I'm curious if that's going to
This is going
work.
to go down a lot. I
100
believe
feet.
it's going to go down another 10%. I'm guessing this one
Yeah,
does take a little bit because it actually goes through each parcel.
it's
Is
only
that
going to take a little bit for another 3-4 days or so.
okay? So that's going to be faster as well.
It's all going to be indexed in our database now. That's why they put wetlands in here so they index it all together. But that's beside the point. Road frontage, I'd probably do, especially when you're subdividing. You guys can target road frontage like that. 500 plus or 800 plus feet of road frontage with your filters. But
That's
yeah,
one I wanted to show, Max. I'm gonna actually show that real fast. So I wanted to show you guys the other way. So a couple of things, because we only have another 3 minutes or so. A couple of things like we talked about with the sellers that you can use. These two buttons are key to the out of or to the seller part. So you have out of state owner and it is out of county owner. So out of county. So let's say Macon County, Georgia, and you do out of county. That means anyone in the
good point,
country
Max.
who
Yeah.
lives out of Macon County, Georgia will be targeted. If you do out of state, let's just do it actually. I don't want doing that. All right. If you do out of state, then that's going to pull up everyone. So no one who lives in Georgia, no one whose mailing address in Georgia is going to pull up on your list. So let's do landlocked. No again. And let's do 2 to 100. Let's see what we get this down to. Out of state. Let's just do out of state. They're out of state. Yes. Okay. So this got it down to 120.
Because they're out of state.
Yes. So you can see the difference if we go NA for this and we do out of county, anyone who lives. So then that takes it quite a bit less. So Macon County is in the center of Georgia. So the majority of people who own land in the center of Georgia probably live in Georgia. But Georgia is a huge state. So you can have anyone who's outside the county. So
it means 300 people that own the land there in our criteria were in the county. Because we were at 700, right?
Yes, we were at. Well, I mean, we're at 900. The road frontage brought it down. Is that what brought it down?
Yeah, to 7.
And then that's not even including like we get rid of the removed duplicates here, and we're down to 318 from our original 900. Again, I wouldn't always. I like doing in county. I'm not a huge fan, but if you were trying to be very precise with it, that's one way. And I wanted to finally show Dan the polygon tool. Let me get Macon County up.
Yeah, and if you guys are enjoying what you guys are seeing, make sure we're here every Wednesday doing similar stuff, tutorials, walkthrough, Q&As, deal reviews, topic every week. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps us come back, shows we're bringing value. If you guys got any value from this, make sure to hit that subscribe. We really appreciate that.
So the final thing with the city limits, and city limits are tough because if you just like city limits are everything, every mail or every parcel is going to have a city attached to it, even if it's not in city limits. City limits are different. Like I'm 30 minutes from Cincinnati. My address is Cincinnati. I'm not in Cincinnati. But you can do this polygon where you can go outside. Oops, I just went in a city. You can do this polygon search where you can go outside of cities. So you could literally do this on the whole parcel or in the whole area if you wanted. I think this is a different. This is Crawford County, Georgia. I'm going around right now. So if you wanted to stay out, I'm staying outside of Byron and I'm staying outside of Fort Valley, essentially. And you could do this in the entire county and just stay outside of the cities so you're not getting city limits. So now you have all this information and you can still do your filters here. You can still do your road frontage stuff here and all these other filters on here. And then this is going to be, this is going to be checking off the good/great land. So now we're getting rid of city limit properties as well. And that's just going to shorten your list again. I'm not a fan of city limits, Dan. I don't know what your thoughts are on them. I don't think there's a data point like on the data where it could just be a check mark, correct?
Yeah, correct. I was just thinking about that and going to ask that. I'm sure we
It
could
could with
figure
the
that out.
geo, with the because we have latitude and longitude. So theoretically, you could put that if you have the city limits shape file, you could definitely know that.
Yeah, I'm sure we could figure that out. I was thinking about that as you were talking, if it could be a good filter. But right now, you could use the polygon to go around whatever cities you want as well.
So we're going to finish that there, guys. It is 6 o'clock. Is there anything you want to add there, Dan? I think it's important. Some of your business, and we were talking about this the other day, some of your business should be very sniper approach. Some of your business, you want to be more shotgun approach. That's how you build a really good land business. You figure out what works and then scale up with that.
Absolutely. No, the only thing to add, so the next steps, you would take this list, you would cold call them, text them. We have different Wednesday YouTube lives on that if you go back on targeting them, but you could send a mail, cold call, text, all of that stuff, and you just choose. You can skip trace directly on the land portal for free, one-click skip trace, or you can do it bulk and pay a little bit extra money for that.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you guys joining us today. We will let you guys know what our next Wednesday will be. If you guys have any suggestions, feel free to shoot me a DM in Discord. Other than that, thank you so